Welcome to We Took the Quest, a podcast about tabletop role-playing games and our experiences with them. I'm your co-quest master, Stephen Pinella.
And I'm your co-quest master, Charles Woody.
Today, we are talking about Cybermetal 2012 by World Champ Games Co., written, illustrated, and published by Adam Vass. In short, Cybermetal 2012 is a heavy metal, lo-fi, cyberpunk tabletop role-playing game for 2 or more players, including the game master.
I didn't even know what a role-playing game was in 2012, Stephen, if I'm being completely honest with you.
I think it was just D&D in 2012. Any other games didn't exist. I think it was just Dungeons & Dragons until recently.
For a solid second, I thought you were being serious. Like, I think it was just Dungeons & Dragons in 2012.
Well, it was. Until recently, of course. At its core, Cybermetal 2012 is a tabletop role-playing game of demons, metalheads, and weirdos surviving and thriving in an isolated city of warped technology in an alternate timeline. Featuring tons of analog, ink illustrations, intuitive dice mechanics for fans of Mothership or Blades in the Dark, fascinatingly weird world building, and much more. In Cybermetal 2012, we were looking for a simple, rules-light game that we could run online. Cybermetal 2012 definitely offers that. It was pretty quick to pick up, and I enjoyed how it flowed. What did you think, Charles?
Yeah, super simple, flows well, easy to pick up, easy to play. This does just make me think of computers a lot. It has that Y2K vibe to it. So it's really funny that this was the one game that, hey, we're going to play this one online. Let's make sure that it works really well online. And it just has all these computer aesthetics. Like the book itself, the PDF reads like you're logging into a 2002 Macintosh computer.
I definitely heard the startup sounds when the book opened. It has that vibe. It has the feeling of looking into a weird past, possible future. I think the way the book transports you speaks on how well the game design is. It's a D100 system or 2D10. It was a confusing kind of thing to agree on whether it was the percentile dice or 2D10. I couldn't get it.
Yeah, I don't know why the core mechanic got us so bad. I listened to some other podcasts and they're like, yeah, it's a 2D10 system. And I was like, we thought it was like a D100 for the longest time. But as Steven said, the core mechanic is you're going to roll this 2D10 system. Your characters have skills. So you'll make a skill check and you're trying to roll under or equal to your skill itself. So you'll roll the 2D10. One will be the tens place, one will be the singles place. And then you'll figure out if you succeeded, failed. And then there's also fallout. So similar to Hearts, or from what I understand, that this is a powered by the apocalypse system. There's also going to be a great success. You remember what the fallout system is, right, Stephen?
The fallout system is a measure of the external results of your reaction, such as how your gang's circumstances change, how others in the area react to you, how the environment shifts, and other significant change that complicates your attempts to survive. Regardless of success or failure, use the remaining D10 result to determine the fallout, or choose one of the 2 D10 if your skill check doesn't involve dealing damage. 1 through 3, things are good. Circumstances change in your favor. 4 through 7, something is weird. It might get messy from here, but you have time to make a plan. 8 through 10, shit is bad. Things are getting worse quickly. So essentially, when you want to make an action roll, you will roll the 2d10, and if it isn't combat, you choose one of the 2d10 to be the result of your roll. If it is during combat, you choose one to take damage. But if you fail either social, situational roll or a combat roll, if you fail one, you have to choose one of those to take to your charge, which is essentially your HP.
And now we have to add an explicit tag to this episode of We Took the Quest. You're not seeing a lot of family TTRPG reviewers talking about Cybermetal, but, I guess it's really metal, the fact that you have a swear word on your character sheet forever.
And that's in the book. I would have changed it, but I just want to, attest to the creators of this book and kind of give a shout out to the vibe of the world, which is all hell has broken loose.
It's very bad. And like you're saying earlier about the core mechanics, choosing between the 2d10s, what I think is really fun and really good game design is if you roll a 9 super low, really good, on your tens place, that is considered a 10, right? So it's the 00, it's 10, and then the 9 on your singles place is also bad. So you're going to succeed, but shit is bad. So I think that's pretty cool that there's a 10% chance that even if you succeed, you roll really low, it's still going to come at a big cost to you.
Right, which is one of the things that tripped me up every time. Because although a 9 is so much lower, because the typical skill is around 65 to 80, when you see a 9, you're like, oh, that's a complete success. But then you start realizing, wait, I have to choose from 10 and 9. Both things are bad. And that's by design. I mean, although you succeed, and it's not necessarily that you fail. Shit is bad, meaning the situation is about to get really bad, although you succeed. So that's basically how the game works. It's, as we said, very simple. 2d10. Unlike D&D, where you would roll an extra d20, in Cybermetal 2012, advantage is after careful planning, perfect timing, or dumb luck, the GM can decide you are at an irregular advantage. The lower of your 2d10s must be considered the tens digit. For example, rolling d100, as two 10-sided dice, a player yields a 3 and a 6. The lower value, 3, must be the tens digit, resulting in 36. So you just have the smaller number. And disadvantage, the opposite. The bigger number will be in the tens digit.
And while you were explaining that, I did a quick Google search. It's called the ones place.
The ones place.
Singles close. Single, one, synonym. That's the core mechanics. The 2d10s, you're trying to roll under or equal to your skill to accomplish something. I guess to talk in depth about those skills, do you want to talk about character creation, Stephen?
Our hands were held by Lucy, the digital assistant, which is essentially a satanic Clippy of the Cybermetal 2012 world.
They're both very cheerful.
Oh, yeah. In such a dire world, Lucy was a guiding light on our journey of character creation in Cybermetal 2012. At first, you choose your hardware, which is your ancestry, your race. You choose from being a human, a demon, a vermin, which is anywhere from a rat to an insectoid, just sort of your typical idea of a vermin, or a husk, which is, I would say, your cyborgs, your more machine than person character, and each of them comes with a task to accomplish, which is not something that is a hard rule, just something to chase during a session to get XP. For example, as a human, there's a task called contribution. Due to the lack of centralized authority, society only works if you contribute. Once per game, you can access terminal and post an update to the pentaweb to track danger, offer work trades, and otherwise collaborate. Your update would incorporate an imposing threat you witnessed or encountered during the day. So it's just little things to help roleplay as the character. We didn't really do the tasks, Charles, right? You didn't do any of yours.
I swapped mine out so I did the vermin, I played a little raccoon, and the vermin's thing is to hoard, but I just changed mine to I wanted to open up a casino. What I think is great about this character design is your task, in addition to flavor, also will help you get experience points. So if you do a specific thing within your task, you'll gain experience. So if we're still using the human as an example, after each update, you gain 1 experience points. After 6 updates, humans can gain important information, an interesting rumor, gig offer from the pentaweb, so on and so forth. So if you follow your task, the game rewards you from a mechanical standpoint that will give you experience points to spend on new abilities, rerolls, which I think is awesome because I don't think in Dungeons and Dragons there's anything like that, right? It's more just, this is what you are, these are typical things that you'll be interested in, but there's nothing that mechanically rewards a human from doing something specific, right?
Correct. During character creation, there's not really sort of leading roleplay options offered. And that's the interesting thing, like you said, with Cybermetal 2012, because it kind of gives you a drive. If all else fails, if you forget how to roleplay for some reason, if you follow this task, it was a neat baked in mechanic where it would reward you for doing the roleplay, essentially.
And I think that's awesome because some people aren't going to have their full backstory together, or some people just when they're playing, maybe they're a game master playing for the first time and they just want to do something light that isn't super taxing on the brain, I'll just follow my task. I'll still get my experience points. All of these tasks are unique within the hardwares, so there's not really any overlap, which is really cool because it makes all the characters seem distinct from themselves. And in addition to, you get some flavor. So there's like a T10 table that'll help you choose what your vermin is or what your demon is, your husk is. For instance, in the vermin, you can choose like what species. So you have anything from like a roach to like a rat. I chose raccoon, which is not on here, but it does a great job of, hey, let's put this character together. How can you improve this character throughout the game? And what does it look like? So shout out Adam Bass. I think this is honestly, more games should do things like this. So that way, if you don't have the exact thing in your mind, like what you want to do from like a background standpoint, or you're still unsure what your character is, this is a great springboard to jump off of.
It's a great way to gamify role-playing, which walks people through the gameplay and the role-playing aspects and melds them together. In addition to your hardware, each hardware comes with 5 skills, and you'll choose 3. Sticking with the example of human, their skills on offer are metal, record, scramble, plead, and bleed. And the really cool thing about the skills is they are up for debate. If you can do an action and apply the skill in any way, they do give a description, well, rather, they give examples of how you might use some of these skills in the book. But for the most part, metal is a skill where if you're doing something metal, like as an adjective, you can apply the skill of metal. If, let's say, you're using a metal crowbar and you're trying to hit someone with it, that also works, which is really neat to kind of stretch these things in situations and try to make the skill work for the situation.
I was immediately thinking of like, oh, I would use metal like bend pipes.
Exactly. And it would work. I would have allowed that every time.
If you're playing in a band, use the metal skill for like a sick guitar lick.
Yeah, if you need to distract a crowd with a very sick guitar lick, roll metal. It was interesting too because each of the hardwares had a fighting skill or a skill you could apply to fighting. For example, bleed. The demon had bleed, the human had bleed, and the vermin has sting. Charles, sting was kind of your go-to for fighting.
Absolutely. They give you 2 options between like a violent skill, like a combat skill, and then more of a roleplay skill, an interaction skill.
But even then, with the vermin, I could see infect work as a combat skill or a situational skill. Almost like a persuasion, like you're infecting the mind or thoughts of the conversation. It's a neat way to think about the different situations you can apply the skills to. And during character creation, you choose 3 from your offered hardware.
It's a fun playground between the game master and the player, because immediately when I'm looking at scramble, you could scramble someone's brain 2 different ways.
Yeah.
So yeah, like mentally scramble it or physically scramble it, and it's just a fun playground for you and the GM to write this story together using those skills.
Right. So between just a few, download, you can use it for collecting data, enable, synchronize. Then there's report. You can tattle. You can roll to tattle. There's explosions, chronicle, tribute, offer, honor, flatter. There's a whole skill that says stench. You can use it for being stinky. I mean, that's pretty self-explanatory. It's a neat way to have that sandboxy play style. With D&D, for example, there's athletics, there's sleight of hand. They're pretty cut and dry. You're going to use these skills for this thing. But you could use metal in so many different ways.
Yeah, in D&D, the skills and abilities are separate from one another, or like you said, like strength will be tied to athletics, and those are 2 separate things. But in Cybermetal 2012, Scramble is both your skill and ability, which saves you space on your character sheet. And then also just gives you that flexibility that we've been talking about.
And speaking of which, we'll take a quick aside to talk about the character sheet. It's very cool, plain and simple. The layout of the sheet is very intuitive.
Yes, this thing will kill your printer ink. So if you are doing all color, just make sure you got your yellow and your red together. One thing that I appreciate about Adam Vass is they go all out. There's no minimalism here, so I appreciate it's a great looking character sheet. But if you're going to print this bad boy in color, just make sure your printer is ready. It's very compact. You got your skills in one area, your inventory, how many things you can own. And it's just a fun character sheet to look at. Sometimes in role-playing games, the character sheet can look more like a tax form than a piece of paper associated with a role-playing game. So I really appreciate the formatting for the character sheet in Cybermetal.
Moving on with the character creation. After you choose your hardware, you will choose your operating system, which is your class that you'll be playing. The classes on offer are Bulldozer, Worshipper, Influencer, Dealer, Crafter, Thrill Seeker, Undertaker, and Bleeder. They each come with an additional skill to choose. They come with a starting item and a special ability. And then there is a specific XP bonus. When you do that objective with your operating system, you'll get an XP from it.
Once again, another great springboard for you to jump off of if you need ideas for your character. And also, once again, finding ways to gamify the role playing. So still reward you for doing those things. I appreciate a game that's trying to get you to lean into a certain thing, and then it's rewarding you for it at the same time. So out of the gate in this book, you have 32 different combinations. That's not accounting for like the different skills that you choose from, but you have the 4 hardwares, you have the 8 operating systems that you can change, and you can really craft a unique, specific character.
We played with you, my little brother Michael, our friend Jesse, and my friend Alec. You played as the preacher.
Worshipper.
Sorry, you played as the worshipper.
What's the difference? He's just leading the worship.
Exactly. Jesse played as the crafter. Michael played as an influencer. And my friend Alec played as the thrill seeker. And they all come with an extra 2 skills. One might be for social, and the other might be for combat.
Yeah, and the skills really tie back to the operating system. So for Worshipper, it's Preacher, Pray. Beautiful. That's just good flavor right there. That makes sense, right? Bulldozer, you have Crush and only Crush to choose from. Dealer, Barter, Contact. I really appreciate the skills walking back towards the operating system just to continue to bring out that flavor of the operating system and the hardware that you chose. So being a vermin worshiper, or in my case, a raccoon worshiper that was trying to work for a casino, just made it really easy for me to be like, oh, the thing that I worship is the casino itself. That is my hallowed ground. So the worshiper has the ability, you may reroll skill checks that take on hallowed ground. So anytime that I was in a casino, that was my hallowed ground, and I would gain benefit from doing things within there.
So malleable.
Yeah, and when we talk about the campaign more specifically, I think we'll really get to brag on how malleable, how hackable this game can be for homebrew.
Yes. And then in the last step for character creation, you'll choose your software, which is an additional ability that you add to your character sheet. And it can be swapped out per job, but it's like a little extra ability or weapon. Some of them give you a whole new skill with different effects.
You know, the best part of that sentence you just said is, Steven? Swap out. Just the ability to take the cartridge out, throw a new one in. You have to go to like a sync area to get it. But in some games where you are locked in on your ability, skills, or even spells, this game, like, hey, you know what? I'm over using this Buzz software. I want to use Berserk. Let me go to a sync station, take out my cartridge, put a new one in. And then another thing that a lot of people brag about for this character sheet, on the bottom right of your character sheet, you have a section called plugin software, where you can print out the software card and you put it underneath your character sheet. That's just so cool. That's just good analog. It feels so satisfying to take it out, slide it in. That's good design work. Hats off to you, Adam Vass.
It is very cool. And I believe when you got the digital version, it came with a bunch of the software cards that we could print out. We played it online. It was very neat. It worked. But if you're playing in person, there's just something about having the physical character sheet and being able to just slot in the software on your sheet. It's just neat. It gives you something to play with almost, and it works with that character sheet.
And I believe at this time, if you want the physical, like if you want some cardstock ones, World Champ Game Co. has them for purchase on their website. You can get the software cards for $18. So you get 44 US poker sized cards that have the unique software application that you can slide into your character sheet. And they're like little individual cards. Oh, and they look good. And they have little arrows in the top right, so you can match the arrows in the character sheet. Just get that real nice kind of like clicking feeling. That's just good stuff. That's fun.
Just like plugging in an old cartridge.
Plug in and play, baby.
Yeah, exactly. So that's basically it for character creation. You then decide what your character looks like, and then you also pick a contact, which is just more flavor, more story potential. Charles, what did you think of the combat for Cybermetal 2012?
As we are learning more about tabletop role-playing games, Steven, this does have a big OSR feeling, so old school revival. So that being more like earlier editions of Dungeons and Dragons or other earlier role-playing games that I can't name at this time. Combat is super simple, which I enjoy, especially if you're playing with people that don't normally play tabletop role-playing games. On your turn, you're going to take an action, and then you can move, or you can swap between the two. So you're going to use those 4 skills that you have. Hopefully one of them is perfect for combat. Maybe you'll use a weapon or a piece of equipment to give you another bonus to raise up that skill. And then there's 4 ranges that you can fight within. So you have close, that's your standard melee, near, far, and out of range. So you don't need hexes or squares or a grid to play this. You can definitely theater mine the combat in here. Super simple. Once again, it all comes back to the 2d10 system where you roll your check, and if you're trying to inflict damage, you choose, after you find out if it's success or failure, which of those dice to use as your outgoing damage and which of those dice to potentially hurt you if you fail.
As the fallout.
As the fallout, correct.
It was, from a GM's standpoint, the combat was very simple. The players start with 100 charge, which is their HP, their health points. The book even says, don't worry, they'll never get back up to 100 again. With adversaries, they had them float around 20 charge to 30, depending on the difficulty. But really, it's narrative first, even in combat. I wasn't bogged down by looking at stat blocks. I just picked a baddie that looked really cool and fought until it felt right for them to run away, or if the players killed them or finished them off. It was very loose. There's no initiative. It's you act, then the players act, and it's a back and forth. It's almost like a conversation. It's almost as if you're just playing out a scene, and it could be violent.
Did you use a lot of end-game adversaries? Like, did they give you like monsters or combatants to use, Steven, or was it more you kind of threw some things together?
I think the first fight I used ones they offered, but from that point, I was like, okay, I get it. And then I kind of just, off the dome, gave a fluctuating charge, and when it felt right, or when the fight felt as if it was coming to a conclusion, then I kind of just ended it. It was very intuitive. There's not a whole lot given on the monster side, which is good, because you're not bogged down by decisions. It's just their charge, their reasons for fighting, or why they would be fighting, and that's really it.
Okay.
Maybe they give you a skill, and then use that to fight with, and they give you a skill check. It's pretty easy to just create an adversary for your players and run it.
Yeah. And I can appreciate, like you said earlier, not getting bogged down, which is nice. So that makes a little bit more sense to me. As I'm looking at it, I was like, oh, only 5 enemies, but these are good, once again, building blocks that you can just put together, like you said. Okay, yeah. And then also, you don't really have to worry about specific weapons doing specific type of damage. I think I saw a note here in the GM advice section of this book is that the average damage is typically 5. You'll know, like if it's like a big old baddie that you're fighting, like he'll have maybe like 50 health or something like that. Just knowing that average damage output really makes it easy for you to make monsters. So that makes sense to me. And listen, I love easy things. There's nothing wrong with having a easy combat setup on a GM side.
I think it helps when the combat is more narrative, if not objective based, to keep them engaged. Keep it like they're playing out a scene, as opposed to, okay, what are my skills? What are my weapons? How much magic do I have left? How can I do this? Planning your next turn. It's just a collaborative fight.
Yeah, and the Fallout system is helping you and your GM with that narrative during the fight.
Yeah, I never worried about creating an enemy for a fight. It felt very intuitive. And we can move on to what excites us about this game. I think Charles would agree with me. This game has probably the best artwork and layout of any game we've reviewed on this season.
Yes, and I feel like I say the artwork is great in every episode that we review, but I'm talking from page 1 to final page 144. There are no shortcuts taken. I feel like sometimes in tabletop role-playing games, you're going to get a big wall of text, white background, maybe just a drawing thrown in for the sake of killing the dead space. But there truly is like no dead space within this book. And another cool thing about it is it's landscape. And if you're not an artistic person like me, this book is sideways. So it's not a vertical top-down book. It's a side-to-side book, which I've never seen before.
As we said at the top, it's like logging into a computer.
Yeah. And Adam Vass is so incredibly talented with their artwork and their typography. The only gripe that I have is there are some fonts in here that I cannot read, dude.
I was thinking the same thing. I would look for a few seconds, maybe zoom out, look closer. There's some things I couldn't read, but I think I got it on the next page with context clues.
Yes, the table of contents is helping you out a lot in case, if you want to cross-reference, like, what is this saying? I'm trying to figure out a really good example. Page 52, surgery, pretty easy to read. There was one I was like, there's no way I can read this. Please definitely pick up the physical copy of this or PDF of this. And I'm not saying that this is a bad thing that the font's unreadable. They're very unique, but also it can be a struggle. But I appreciate how original it is. I've never seen anything like this before.
9 times out of 10, probably user error. My brain maybe just doesn't work the way this book requires it to in terms of reading these very difficult fonts. You can't deny the style.
So yeah, art and layout definitely excited me and Steven. When I saw the cover of this book, I immediately just wanted to play it. I know everyone's like, don't judge a book by cover, but like, I don't know, maybe judge a book by cover a little bit. If it draws you in, it draws you in. There's a crazy image on the front cover. I saw that it was sideways. Like, let's open this thing up. And I appreciate the vibe that is. This is a game that knows exactly what it is. It's not trying to be more than one thing. And it fit in perfectly on our journey of finding games that aren't just D&D clones. Like this is a unique game and a unique premise by itself. So that excited me a lot.
If I know one thing about you in your TTRPG gaming journey, Charles, is that you love factions. You love when there are various gangs with various goals to achieve. And that was something that was sort of baked into the ideology of Cybermetal 2012.
Yeah, dude, there's rival gangs in the city that you can compete with, that you might have beef with. And honestly, I think this comes from me just being a sports fan. Each sports team has its own city, its own colors, things to root for. So maybe that's where that comes from. But yeah, I love factions. Love me some factions big time. And just to see that factions were included in this game, big bonus.
A big thing that excited me about Cybermetal 2012 is the experience point system. Instead of, whereas your D&Ds, you'll have XP that you track or milestone, this game offers a checklist. It says players can gain XP in a myriad of ways, including doing tasks affiliated with their chosen hardware and operating system, completing gigs assigned by the GM, ranking in video nasty competitions, completing base projects, winning in conflict resolution, combat or nonviolent, answering yes to end of session questions, which are: did you gain or betray someone's trust? Did your gang change power level? And did you do something metal? That's the way to gain XP. So you could check at the end of each session, look through, yes, yes, no, no, yes. And then they get 1 point for each to a cap of 10, which you then use for upgrades. And there's a menu of things you could spend your XP on, from rerolling a skill check, to gaining a new contact, to gaining 5 skill points that you can distribute on your skills. So it's a nice little menu for your XP.
And in addition to something that's unique about the experience system here, I think this is something that I just read. You don't have to earn experience points only at the end of the session. So if you do complete a gig that was assigned by the GM could award you the experience point in the middle of the session, which I think is...
Oh, in that moment.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So experience points are earned 1 point at a time, tracked on each player's character sheet. Players can collect up to 10 experience points before they're forced suspended. But yeah, they're earned 1 point at a time. When it happens, it doesn't have to be at the end of the game. So if they do that thing, they earn the experience, and they could be like looking up upgrades during the session, maybe even.
I really like that little system because it's like it's a little checklist instead of kind of deciding, yeah, I guess you guys level up. This keeps it in the player's hands. As long as they're tracking their XP, they use them accordingly.
Yeah, less stress, less work for the game master, and just having that pool to choose from as a player character. It's so funny to me that this game calls itself like a lo-fi game, and I was like, I don't quite know what that is. And the more that I talk, like, I'm understanding it. This is, hey, it's self-contained. You're not going to go off like in a big rabbit hole. Here are your options. What do you want to do? Okay, great. You'll do it. You'll have another choice soon again.
Yeah, it felt very just intuitive. Like we were looking for something that was rules light, and this met it and honestly exceeded our expectations. Was there anything else that excited you, Charles, about Cybermetal 2012?
Nah, I mean, art, vibe, factions. That's it for me.
Right on. We talked a little bit about the GM experience. Charles, what about the player experience? How did you handle being a player in Cybermetal 2012?
Yeah, this is the first game where Steven was at the helm as the game master for the entire campaign, and I was just a player. Overall, once I finally understood the 2D10 system for Cybermetal 2012, it really started to click for me. Like we said earlier during character creation, the hardware and operating systems being distinct from one another really makes you feel that everyone within your play group has their own specific role. Like you don't have 2 Iron Mans or 2 Supermans or whatever. You have like a different Avenger or some heavy metal. You have a bassist, you have a drummer within your gang, and they do specific things. Some things that I struggle with and maybe have critiques are, I feel like progression feels a little more limited and slow. I understand the benefits of choosing from the 6 different options for XP upgrades, but I wish you could get more than one software. I felt like hamstrung at times that I can only really do 5 things, and yeah, I can argue what I'm trying to accomplish with Sting and see if it can be accomplished, but I felt limited in that regard. But then if you come back and you remind yourself that this is a lo-fi, like rules-like game, then that makes sense. That is to be expected. there are gang projects that you can do as a group to like accomplish specific things. Feels slow as far as like getting those things to accomplish because you're rolling a dice, and if you roll low and you don't make any progress on that, it's like, dang, dude, we just played for 3 hours and we're not going to get that merch we really wanted now. So that was tough for me.
And to speak on that, I believe the rules as written is they get one gang project roll a session, and that's kind of why it might feel like that.
Mm-hmm.
I would say,
yeah. So I struggle with that, but once again, I understand. Like, it all comes back to that lo-fi point. Work with your GM. You know, I could have brought this up to you, Steven, and I could have been like, hey, like, what can we do to like really beef this up? But then it's also that fine line. I want to play the game as intended without changing it too much from its original state that it was provided to us. But yeah, right here. So gang advancement. Gangs change and evolve between game sessions. Between games, roll for each gang in their city to pursue. So you can also track what's going on with the other gangs, like not just ourselves. Completing projects. Unlike other gangs, your gang does not lose progress on low rolls. So that's only for like the other cities. Instead, there's supposed to be like some sort of like narrative thing that occurs. So once again, unlike other gangs, your gang does not lose progress on low rolls. You instead gain the ire of someone who witnesses your failed attempts, which I think is good. Instead, your gang only loses progress by being actively deterred by other gangs' interference.
so that was sort of a GM-ish. I messed that up because I was definitely rolling it back.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Make sure you read the book.
Hey, no, and you did a dang good job. Like, there's so much going on, Hunter, and I think this is good. I want to talk about more about that, but that was a struggle. If there's one thing I can call out, just if someone were to run this into the future, if you got a min-maxer in your group or someone who just feel like things have been accomplished, things have been done. Like, that's me. I just love having things checked off as I play. You know, that's like a big thing. Just find a way to help that person, whether it's maybe your gang didn't accomplish a project, but maybe like their character accomplished something. So it feels like the progression isn't as slow. And then back to my one problem with the limit of one software. I feel so silly saying this as a straight edge person. I should use drugs more, man. Drugs.
Clip that, everyone.
Yeah, there's the whole section on drugs, and drugs are kind of like their own analog software because they give you benefits and other skills and abilities. And I think my character, Woodalius, he only did drugs like one time.
Yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of drug use, which is good, but there's a whole section where you can craft your own drugs with various effects or side effects, which they roll for. But that could have been possibly due to the setting we put it in, maybe. But even then, yeah, I did want to play around with drugs more.
I'm telling your parents.
No, please.
An example of drugs, they have like a drug D10 table that you can roll on. It's metal as heck. Number 10, opioid. Reduce incoming pain by 1 to minimum 1 for the next duration of the next encounter. +1 to all incoming damage until sync or another drug is taken. I think I used opioid in our campaign. That was like the one session. But there's variables. So there's like sugar or moldy, fungus. So if you have someone, once again, they want more things to play with or they want more options, definitely get involved with drugs in Cybermetal 2012. And then the other thing was gadgets. There's a whole crafting system in here that I should have looked more into because you can create these gadgets and then have them surgically implanted in your character.
The surgery mechanics we didn't really get into at all. Like I said, I think that's mainly because of the setting.
Mm-hmm.
So if you keep it within the cyberpunk setting, there is so much here to accommodate that genre.
And this comes down to as well, like if you are playing this and you are a player, you know, I won't be the first time, won't be the last time. Sometimes I don't know how I get so dang busy, but all these gripes that I have, mostly could have been solved by just me cracking open the book a little bit more, and then also talking to Steven as well. So just continue to have that good conversation with your game master. But yeah, if you feel like hamstrung by your 4 skills in the one software, get some drugs, make some gadgets, and get some surgery, man. And then you'll pretty much have all your fancies tickled there.
All the fancies definitely tickled. And you can live your cyberpunk dream.
The cyber.
So it checks all the boxes.
And then the last thing overall, before I'm putting this together in real time talking with you, I just felt like from a player standpoint, the progression goblin in me, the achiever, the accomplisher in me thinks this is better for short-term campaigns instead of long-term campaigns. But now that I know I could have used drugs, gadgets, and surgery more, there's a lot left that I personally left on the table. So take my mistakes, fam, and learn from them. Because we played this for 15 sessions. And I think had I used those other facets of the book more, there would have been a much more variable experience for me as a player.
Originally, we wanted this to be a rules light, quick game, but there is definitely a way you could make this a long-term game, a rules light cyberpunk genre game. And if any of you have played Cyberpunk 2077, this TTRPG is very, very close to the same vibe.
For a second, I was like, is that the sequel to this game? But then I remember it as a whole video game, whole self-contained, completely unrelated to this.
Yeah.
But that was the player side. Let's talk more about the GM experience. Steven, tell the fine people about our campaign of Cybermetal 2012, like the setting and what we did.
For Cybermetal 2012, I noticed that between factions and demons walking around the streets, I saw similarities to Magic the Gathering's setting of New Capenna, which, for those who don't know, is a vertical city, mafia-style Art Deco setting ran by 5 families, and those 5 families are ran by archdemons. I saw the opportunity for Cybermetal to meld the two together. It made for a very interesting cyberpunk X Art Deco genre that, honestly, it felt like it worked pretty well. A lot of the mechanics offered in Cybermetal 2012 made it easy to homebrew this genre and setting, and I was pretty pleased with it.
Both of them have demons. I don't remember if there was any mention of angels in Cybermetal 2012, but there are angels, and you have factions and gang activity. Reese's Peanut Butter Cup of 2 different worlds colliding. Wizards of the Coast, I would love a Universes Beyond Cybermetal 2012. Magic the Gathering.
That would be sick.
Hit up Adam Bass. I'm sure they might be into it.
Yeah, and there was a couple of mechanics or name changes I did just to fit the New Capenna world, where the money used in Cybermetal 2012, I just transferred it to Halo, which is a resource used in New Capenna. This is our second time using MTG World, which I really like, and the lore provided by some of these Magic the Gathering worlds makes really cool playgrounds to play in for TTRPGs. And Cybermetal 2012 helped that process to be very easy and very fluid.
An underrated game master tip, if you're just looking for a campaign frame or like a premise, just Google, like I'm sure there is a Magic the Gathering randomizer that will just pull up a set, and you can learn about this new world, and you can just plop in like, hey, I already have our world right here. Thank you, Magic the Gathering. I think that's an underrated tip, and I completely agree with you, Steven. There's so many options out there that you can rip from Magic the Gathering and use in a tabletop role-playing game. And the systems don't even have to be 1-to-1. And I think this is one that, like, you knocked it out of the park, dude. This was a perfect combination.
Well, thanks, man. It felt very natural. The story progression was easy to slot you guys in as a lowly gang, and you worked your way up in the ranks. And it was fun. From a GM standpoint, it was a very easy thing to do that I was excited about, and then to get you guys excited about it felt very natural.
And another thing that this game does well is this plays great with however many people that you have. Unfortunately, the evil wizard called Life got in the way of our player count. Some sessions we would have 4 players, some sessions we would have 2. And near the end of the campaign, it was mostly just Steven being the game master and 2 players, myself and his little brother Michael. And I still had a lot of fun with just having, one other player alongside me with the game master. So don't feel like you have to have the 5 people at the table, the 6 people at the table. You can still have a lot of fun with a role-playing game, even if it's just 3 people, 2 players, and a game master.
Yeah, normally I'm used to 4 to 5 people. I was kind of worried, but prepared. But then when I realized the description of the game, it does say 2+ players. I like the condensed player count at the table. It felt easy, and it didn't feel too light.
Yeah, and then also you're getting to do more things. There's less waiting on your side if you're someone who's got attention problems, or you just you want to do more things, but you don't want to take away from other people's time. We would just knock so much stuff out because hey, you ready to go to the next thing? And Michael's just yeah, let's go. And then we would just get things done. And then also we would only play for the last 4 or 5 sessions. We only played 2-hour sessions, and we still had a lot of fun and still got a lot of things done. So don't feel like if you don't have that 3 or 4 hour block, you can't have a blast playing tabletop role-playing games. 2 hours is still plenty to get a lot done and to enjoy yourself.
Couldn't agree more. In addition to how easy it is to homebrew the adventure for your campaign, if you wanted just a little bit more, if you wanted to squeeze the World Champ Game Co's library for a little bit more of that sweet Cybermetal juice, there's a supplement called DLC Cybermetal 2012 Expansion Zine, which has 4 Cybermetal adventures you could run. That's crazy. I didn't know that there was an extra little bit that we could have even gotten.
Same. World Champ Game Co. offers a ton of products. They usually don't do just one-offs. They do a lot of support for the games that they release. So if you're maybe not interested in running a new Capenna homebrew setting, or if you are struggling to find a good jumping off point for your story, run one of those adventures. That would be super helpful. Sorry to get us off track, but I did want to ask one more game mastering question to you, Steven. Was there anything you wish you had done differently or wish you had known earlier on for Cybermetal 2012 as a game master?
Yeah, I think there was a couple of things that I would have liked to have incorporated. There's a couple of things. Video Nasty is sort of this citywide competition that it gets mentioned quite a bit throughout the book. And I just didn't see how it would fit in the new Capenna Art Deco style. But I think it would have been really cool to run those. Outside of that, one thing that probably we missed out on was the blood money stuff or the debts. We could have leaned in harder on the mafia side of things. If I had looked a little harder at the debts / blood money, I think I may have saw the blood money as the currency, and I just kind of moved that aside to move in my flavorful money system with the new Capenna stuff. But I think definitely we missed out on some potentially flavorful RP scenes with the Video Nasty and the blood debts.
Yeah. And once again, this ties back to how much Adam Bass is putting into this game, and you're just getting so much value from it. There's so much you can rip, you can add in, even without the blood money, even without the Video Nasties, even without large usage of drugs or surgery. We still had fun. I still had a good time playing this game. So I definitely hear you there. And if anything, if we do come back, or if someone is about to run something, hopefully they'll take this advice and they'll find ways to incorporate it in their setting.
Don't be like me. Learn the lessons here. That's what we're doing. We're out in the field, boots on the ground, to let you know how you can increase the quality of your games at your table.
Absolutely. And if you're looking for more similar vibes, like Steven said earlier, I would highly recommend you check out the expansion zine. If you watch the Adult Swim show Metalocalypse, this also seems like a really good tie-in that you can put together in Cybermetal 2012. And those are the two big, like, similar vibe things I would recommend. Steven, would you recommend bringing this to the table?
I think I 100% recommend bring out your horns, bring out your guitars. I recommend bringing this metal boy to the table.
Metal boy. As far as I go, as long as you have a conversation with your players and you figure out what type of game you want to play. So if you're looking for a rules light, nothing super crunchy, and what I mean by crunchy is like a lot of options to choose from, advancements, little subsections to go into, then yeah, I would recommend this. I think if you're starting out, this is also super easy to learn, in my opinion. There's not a whole lot of wheels for you to keep track of from a game master point. So yeah, this is worth your money. This is worth your time. Just have a conversation with your players. That'll do it for us here at We Took the Quest. I've been your co-quest master, Charles Woody.
And I've been your co-quest master, Stephen Panella.
And stay metal AF, y'all.
Don't do drugs.
Unless they give you bonuses to your abilities in a game. Bye.
Bye.